Welcome to the Carnivore Cast, the podcast focused on the carnivore diet and lifestyle, with practical advice from successful carnivores, citizen scientists, and top researchers. I'm your host, Scott Myslinski, and I'm here to speak with experts and experienced carnivores to get answers to your biggest and meatiest questions while helping you live your best life as a carnivore. If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the Carnivore Cast on Patreon. By becoming a patron, you'll help us reach more people and continue to create content on carnivore. There are also exclusive perks available, such as private Q&As, consultations with me, and more. Become a supporter at patreon.com/carnivorecast. Check the episode description for the link. Thank you, and I'll see you there. This episode is brought to you by LMNT Electrolytes. We know that salt, potassium, and magnesium are essential minerals, especially for those on carnivore, keto, and low-carb diets to relieve hunger, dizziness, cramps, headaches, and keep so many of your bodily processes running optimally, including sleep, brain and mental health, hormonal health, your heart, immunity, and more. LMNT electrolytes are convenient, evidence-based, and delicious. My wife and I have been using LMNT for years, every single day. They're great for fueling hard workouts, getting adapted, and beating keto flu, fasting, traveling with them, and kickstarting your day with energy. They're used by Navy SEALs, Olympic weightlifters, jiu-jitsu athletes, and everyday people who want to make themselves better, like you and me. They're also founded by superhero Rob Wolf. LMNT is offering free, that's right, free people, LMNT sample packs to Carnivore Cast listeners. All you have to do is pay for shipping. Go to drinklmnt.com/carnivorecast to claim this awesome deal. That's drinklmnt.com/carnivorecast, one word, and I'll include a link in the show notes. Linda Salant is a 6-year carnivore, mother of 2, competitive ballroom dancer, and an amazing carnivore coach. She's at the Carnitarian on Instagram. And last time she came on, we talked a lot about her story, her sharing her wisdom about being on carnivore for so long and using it to beat PCOS, anxiety, migraines, edema, and whole body pain. She's also a regenerating member of the Savory Institute and feels passionately about how ruminant animals and regenerative ranching are net positive for both our health and for the health of our planet. We touched on that too. Definitely go check that episode out if you missed it. It's one of my favorites. Welcome back to the show, Linda.
Thank you so much for having me back. It's great to talk to you again.
Of course. Yeah. We were just chatting a little bit before the show about life and ballroom dancing and all that. So I'm glad to hear you're doing well there. But one topic you had asked to talk a little bit about today, and I'd love to hear why, first of all, is a shift of focus from on health away from just the weight. What gave you the idea that you wanted to talk about that?
Yeah, I see a lot of times people are focusing on that metric of weight for how they're doing health-wise. Like if I am of a certain weight and I'm falling into my ideal weight and my weight is great, then I am healthy. And their goal oftentimes centers on losing weight. And I'm just feeling like at this point, people need to sort of shift that mindset. Like I've had enough of that. I feel like people should have enough of that, that the focus really needs to be different. What happens when it needs to be on health, right? It needs to be on strength. What happens when you focus on weight, in my opinion, is you're giving a lot of headway to people to sort of manipulate you into pursuing your health in ways that aren't necessarily going to get you where you want to go. So people like food companies, they love when people focus on weight because then they can talk about calories in, calories out. They can talk about energy balance. Companies like Coke, General Mills, the people that make those hyper palatable, hyper processed foods love to say that, yeah, weight is very important. And if you just balance, our food with controlling your weight, you can still be healthy. And I have issue with that. There's nothing in those foods that can contribute to somebody's health. And though some diet foods may be restricted in calories, and you may find yourself losing weight if you restrict calories, you certainly aren't on your way to health because of any of those foods. So that's one reason why I think we should shift away, from weight. The reality is that those food products, those companies will use that to their advantage and to your disadvantage, and you will be spinning your wheels, and you'll have to just work harder to get out of the problems that those food items are giving you. Because really, what's happening is they're feeding into your maybe food addiction. They are not giving you the satiety that you need. They're certainly not contributing to your strength and your general health. So that's one reason that I think a focus away of weight is important. And also, if we shift the focus to strength, if we shift the focus to gaining things like lean body mass, bone density, and muscle mass, then we can stop focusing on the scale and understand that maybe our weight is actually really fine. Maybe we can be healthier at an even heavier weight because we can have more muscle mass. We can have denser bones. So I think it's an important conversation. And I see people in the space now around us, in the carnivore community, the keto community, starting to have these conversations, and I'm really enjoying it. So yeah, I did want to touch on that today.
Yeah, I think that's great. And just like you said, I think the focus on weight can be really holding you back. Not only is not losing weight doesn't mean you're getting healthier, but if you only drove your weight down, you might be making yourself less healthy with the muscle mass point, which I think is really important. And I guess, can you talk about going through this shift yourself, or helping people you coach go through this? How's that worked?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I had very minimal weight to lose at the end of my pregnancies. I was sort of at a place where I needed, to lose about 15 pounds, 10 or 15 pounds, not a huge amount of weight. But really, yeah, I wanted to lose that weight. And I was like, okay, I will, go back to keto because I know that it's going to reduce my inflammation. I can lose some weight. I can get healthy doing keto. That quickly changed over to carnivore. And like you said at the intro, we've told that story before, but to me now, what I've realized is that by doing that, by making that switch to better foods, not just a calorie reduction, where I had in the past done crazy things like juice diets, or like just alternate day eating, like eating junk food one day, or regular standard American diet one day, skipping a day, and then doing that again. Crazy things that are really all about calorie restriction. When you switch to a different nutrition approach, and I do try to explain this to clients, is that you will find your health and you will find improvements in your health far beyond perceived improvements on the scale. That's the unexpected part for a lot of people, is that I try to explain that though you may have a goal weight, if you can focus on health as a goal, that weight is going to be of no consequence. You will be at whatever weight your body is most healthy at if you focus on health. And switching away from those standard American diet foods, incorporating things like resistance training, making sure you're getting enough protein, staying away from sugar, seed oils, things like that, will improve your health to a point that your metabolism is then trending towards fixed, and then your weight will resolve. The way I see it now is different than I did before, in that overweight, is a symptom of our metabolic dysfunction, right? The problem is not that we have excess weight. The problem is that our metabolism is not working right. And if we can fix that metabolism, our weight issue, our overweight will resolve. We perhaps won't have excess fat, which to me is a symptom of metabolic dysfunction. So rather than focus on losing weight or losing fat, I think it's a great paradigm shift to say, let's get your hormones in order by making sure you're not spiking insulin 6 times a day, as would be recommended by the food pyramid. Let's make sure you're getting in enough protein so that you've got the building blocks to grow your muscles, get your metabolism really moving, and then you'll see those issues resolved. There's so many people that I speak to that have been calorie restricting for so long, thinking that this is how I'm going to get healthy. And after so many years of it, you have to ask them, like, really, how is it going? How is it working for you? Not so great. They may see a temporary reduction in weight, but it's always unsustainable. To calorie reduce and restrict is always unsustainable. So I try to help people get to a point where they can eat, a human amount of food, a decent amount of food, an appropriate amount, and get in those building blocks, the healthy fats, all the protein they need to get their metabolism, really working well after so many years of maybe restriction. And then the weight issue becomes secondary. They find themselves becoming stronger, their cravings decrease, and health improvements are what we find. And weight is like, reduced weight is like a side effect of that.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to think about it. And it doesn't mean you have to throw away the scale forever, but you can develop a different relationship with it.
Absolutely.
And see it as a part of a bigger picture.
Right.
And can you talk about, I know you did some personal experiments with tracking your macronutrients and switching up ratios. Can you talk about what you did, what inspired it, and what you learned?
Yeah, absolutely. So this was fun. I did, and I'm still continuing, I did 10 weeks of a high protein experiment where I tracked everything that I ate after the fact. What I did was follow the advice of people like Vanessa Smina, Ted Naiman, the PE ratio type of protocol where you are maximizing protein, you are getting in lots of like muscle protein synthesis, like Dr. Gabrielle Lyon talks about this. Like you want to have, enough muscle that you're healthy because you've got muscle, right? So I really was trying to increase my protein and keep my carnivore diet. But what I had done for almost 6 years, 6 years when I started this, was basically like ribeye macros. I had been doing just all the fatty meats, whatever cuts I liked. I wasn't tracking. I'm really not a huge fan of tracking. We can talk about that later. But I did, for these 10 weeks, track what I ate because I was doing this experiment. So my macronutrients before I did this were basically about 30% protein in my diet and 70% fat. So like a ribeye steak. And that was, mixed meats. There, lots of hamburger, lots of pork belly, lots of lamb, just whatever meats. And I did very well with this high fat carnivore approach. I resolved a lot of issues like you discussed in the intro. There's lots of health improvements by doing that, but I was still feeling like kind of jiggly, kind of not my best. And I thought to myself, after listening to all of these protein experts, I could maybe trim down by doing a higher protein approach. And that was sort of the promise, was that you would burn your own body fat stores if you would just increase protein and shift down the fat a little bit. I was very skeptical. And I think that's probably why I waited so long to do this higher protein approach, because I thought to myself, as a keto person, as a keto carnivore person, I know that eating fat does not make you fat. So this approach is like a gimmick. That's what I thought, that why would I need to reduce my fat? I'm perfectly healthy. Everything is good. Probably, if I wanted to lose weight, I could just eat a little less, but that's not sustainable. I'm probably out of, the weight where I need to be. And I still am feeling like I'm at a perfectly fine weight, but I wasn't really all that pleased with my body composition, definitely at least in the legs. I think I tested at 36% body fat when I went for a DEXA. So I wasn't really pleased with that, even though my weight was fine. So I made this switch. I switched to my first 4 weeks, I did about 60% protein. And I'll be honest with you, I wasn't feeling really great. That was kind of high. I was feeling a little bit hangry at times. So after that, for the next 6 weeks, I went to about 50% protein. And I just sort of averaged that. Every day was different. I tracked everything after the fact. So I was eating to satiety every day, but I was just choosing leaner cuts. So instead of choosing, ribeye and ribs, I was choosing things like flat iron steak and sirloin. So it was very easy. I found that once I hit that like 50% protein, 50% fat ratio, I got in, and on average for me, it was about 190 grams of protein, and I was feeling great. I didn't feel hungry. And every time I would enter my meals for the day, I was always like, yep, that's what I thought. And it would always end up at about that 190 where I felt done for the day. And that's grams of protein. So it was really interesting. I'm glad that I did the tracking for this experiment because it was very interesting for me to find out that number of like where my protein threshold sort of lies and what amount of protein it is that makes me feel satisfied, and not restricted and not feeling like, oh, I need more fat for satiety. That amount of protein sort of did it for me. So, what I did was not necessarily a huge deficit. I averaged about 1,600 calories a day. My resting metabolic rate is about, according to the DEXA, it's like 1,200 calories a day resting. So if you add in, energy expenditure that everybody has to have throughout the day, I was at maybe a slight deficit with this 1,600 calories a day average. But after those 10 weeks, I went back and I retested at the DEXA lab, and I came up at 30% body fat with only a 3-pound weight change. So it's important to note that there was only a 3-pound difference, but there was a 9-pound fat loss difference. I'm rounding up, but 8 something plus. But so another reason why, the scale is maybe not your best friend, because I had great gains in lean muscle tissue. I had what I consider a pretty big fat loss, 9 pounds in 10 weeks. And all I did was just do this protein shift. So that was amazing. I'm a huge fan now, not skeptical anymore of the protein leverage hypothesis. I think it's incredible. And I encourage people to try it that maybe are stuck in their keto or carnivore journey where they've been told that to be keto, you've got to keep your protein down to like 30%. I encourage people to vary that and bump up the protein and see what happens. And they might be surprised, happily surprised.
I'm very excited to be partnering with Bioptimizers to bring you guys an awesome new product. Capex helps you digest fat, which we all know is so important on a carnivore or meat-based diet. There are many well-researched benefits to having good fat in your diet. I think it's an essential part of carnivore to make sure you're getting enough fat, not just jamming down protein. But the problem is with too much fat and without proper digestive enzymes and key nutrients, the fat just sits in your stomach and creates a traffic jam. For me, this made me bloated, made me up all night with indigestion. You can feel sluggish, low energy. Undigested fats pass through your GI tract, so you can get greasy, fatty stools, constipation, fatty liver, etc. But Bioptimizers has created an awesome new digestive product called Capex, which is specifically great for carnivore. It helps in a few key ways. One is it can help rev up your cellular metabolism and boosting your energy and your capacity to burn fat as fuel. It also helps your body build new cells on a carnivore diet. And lastly, it can give you really strong focused energy. So I don't recommend taking it past 5 p.m. or so, because it can just wake you up without any stimulants, which is pretty awesome. So I highly suggest you check it out. I had a great podcast with one of the founders and CEO of Biooptimizers, Matt Gallant. If you want to check it out, you can go to kenergize.com/carnivorecast to get a discount. That's KENERGIZE.com/carnivorecast, one word. And you'll automatically get 10% off any package of Capex with coupon code carnivorecast10. It's all one word at checkout. That's kenergize.com/carnivorecast. And hope you guys enjoy.
And so many great points you made there. I commend you for being open-minded and open to experimentation, because I think a lot of people, myself at times, have fallen prey to that trap of, I have to eat a certain amount of fat to be keto, and this high protein thing is just a trick, and it's not going to work. I'm not going to feel well on it. And I think also another thing you mentioned that was really intelligent is you brought up finding the right level for you. Because I think so many people say, I'm going to try high protein, and they go all the way to one end of the spectrum where they're eating like really lean steaks only, or even like fish or chicken. And they're effectively jumping from, a high fat diet to an only protein diet, and they feel horrible, understandably. And then they conclude that higher protein just doesn't work, and they go back to the other extreme, when in reality, it's about finding that right level where you feel great, you have good energy, it tastes good, and you can be happy and satisfied. Because I think on either end of the spectrum, super high fat or super high protein, and it does vary for everyone, like you said, either end of that spectrum, most people won't feel well. But it's about finding the level that works well for you.
Right. And that's just it. Like there's no magic number for everyone. And so when people come to me and they say, well, how much protein should I eat? I can give you sort of a ballpark, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be happy with that. You're not going to feel well with that. And so people need to kind of do the experiment on their own. And it's a little bit cliche to say, well, you have to find what works for you, right? We hear that all the time. You got to find what works for you. And that leaves people sort of lost, because they've got to find their own way when we say that to people. But it's, it is very helpful to have somebody like a coach, somebody with experience who can help you find what works for you. But in the end, it's going to absolutely vary. So if you are following somebody that doesn't have your metabolic history, or is not your age, doesn't have your diet history, and you're just saying, well, they did, this for so many days and that for so many days, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to achieve the same results as them, you're going to get like nowhere. So yeah, it's very important to experiment.
Yeah. And that point of like comparing yourself to others, I think is interesting. And another topic you had sent across was falling victim to your genetics and fairness. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So to your first point, genetics and the testing that I see a lot of people doing, because it's accessible now, it's affordable now. And people are going out and getting these things like, 23andMe, and finding out a lot of bad news,
Right.
like, oh, well, I have a predisposition for diabetes. I have a predisposition for overweight. I have all of these things in my history. And then maybe you share that with your doctor, and then your doctor is more than happy to prescribe you something to help you with your predisposition. I think it's sort of, a dangerous game to, information can be taken for what it is, but I feel like people shouldn't just say, well, I'm screwed. My genetics tell me that I am, and I may as well just eat this pizza and Doritos because there's no hope for me anyway. My 23andMe told me so, I don't like it. And it makes me sad when people say, well, diabetes runs in my family, so it's inevitable. What can I do? Why should I give up my sweet tea? I'm just going to get diabetes anyway. And so, I tried to explain to people that you should not fall victim to any, to your genetics. Obviously, there are genetic issues that people inherit that you cannot lifestyle your way out of, but there are a ton that you can lifestyle your way out, because it's your lifestyle that got you in, or, foods you've been eating that got you into your predicament. And certainly type 2 diabetes is one of those health issues that you can fix with diet. And now, as far as fairness goes, I grew up in a household that said life's not fair. That's the way the cookie crumbles, all of this stuff. Like if you see somebody achieving their goals and they are doing XYZ, and then you try XYZ and it doesn't work for you, like, sorry, Charlie, it doesn't work for you. You got to try something else. You can't just throw up your hands and say, well, that didn't work. Life's not fair. I'm just doomed. So I like to give people a little bit of tough love. And I feel like the tough love that I got in my family, the support that I had growing up, was you've got to make it happen. You've got to take responsibility for yourself, and life's not fair. If you've been dealt a crappy hand as far as genetics goes, you got to work around that, and you're going to have to work a little bit harder if you want to achieve maybe the same results as somebody that you're comparing yourself to. And not all results are achievable for all people, because like I said, life's not fair. I'm only 5'3". Would I like to be 5'9"? Yes. That's just not in the cards for me, So I will never look like, long leg, tall supermodel, but I can certainly improve my body composition, so I think it's an important point to let people know, remind people like, yeah, life's not fair, but you can just keep trying. You don't have to throw your hands up just because you feel like you've been dealt a bum hand. Take responsibility for yourself, get the support you need from family, friends, coaches, coworkers, whoever you can to help you if you need that. But don't throw up your hands and just say, I'm done for.
Totally agree. I think we need to focus on being a better version of ourselves. That's all we really can do. And it's just not productive at the end of the day to compare yourself. And you just had your 20-year anniversary, Linda. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's
Really
our 20-year wedding anniversary. I just can't believe the time has passed like that. But thank you so much.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk to you about, I've talked a lot about how my wife and I handle it, but, dealing with your own accountability and that of your significant other with regards to life changes and what they want to do with themselves. What's your philosophy on that?
Well, it's sort of similar, right? The way that you should aspire to take responsibility for yourself. I think once you take on a relationship, a partner in life, you are in a way responsible for supporting them in their health, and holding yourself accountable and also holding them accountable for their health, because now you're in this together, right? So if you, as an example, if you saw Marissa doing some kind of behavior that would be damaging to her, you would feel compelled to say, you know what? I don't think this is great for you. I love you. I care about you. I want you to be a healthy person, live as long as you can. And you would sort of check her. And I hope that people can do that with their significant others. And if you don't have someone else in your life, to hold you accountable, I highly suggest people go and try and find someone. And there's lots of resources online, people that can help you. But it's important to do it on both sides. I find oftentimes, and you probably realize this, whenever there is somebody who's like off the rails, where they are addicted to any substance, but, in our world, we're talking about food mainly. There's always somebody there kind of like enabling them. And family members can just be the worst, because they don't want to see you sad. they don't want to see you struggling, and they don't want to see you hungry. They don't want to see you unhappy with your, diet plan. And just, if you say something to your significant other, like, oh, I just wish I could just go and eat, some Krispy Kremes. Your significant other may see that and say, I love this person. I want them to be happy. I'm just going to go and get them a box of Krispy Kremes because it will make them happy. That kind of enabling is just not okay. In my opinion, it's not okay. You can't have this relationship with a partner and say constantly, back to one another, well, you only live once. Let's have fun. Because at the end of the day, it's not fun to be in pain. It's not fun to have diabetes. It's not fun to not be able to fly because you can't fit in the seat, So I think that is important. Like, I love my husband and I accept him, obviously. But if there's ever a time where I'm like feeling like we're not moving in a positive direction, that kind of open communication is so important, because you don't want to be the person who's enabling any kind of destructive behavior. And I love to see couples that are sort of growing together in a positive way. Like, I look at, couples like, for example, Jamie and Ben Seaman, and I'm just like, they're amazing, like power couple, like doing the things and getting stronger all the time. And it's, to me, that is so amazing to have like such a positive force in a relationship. And, people that are lucky enough to have that kind of a relationship, I just feel like that it's amazing. And it's something I aspire to. And I think that people should keep it in mind when they're in a relationship, that you may think you're supporting your significant other by accommodating them. But if you're accommodating destructive behaviors, that's not, it's just not okay.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think it's a fine line to walk, because it's easy to jump to like guilt and a feeling of creating guilt and shame. And that's not what you want to do, because then the other person feels like they're being judged by you and they feel like they can't be honest with you. Right. And you want to be a supportive partner to them, but approaching it from a place of like, hey, are you all right? Is this in line with what you want? And just trying to help them,
Right.
and coming from a place of caring and loving is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, and that kind of a style, I mean, you bring up a good point. Tough love's not for everybody. It's, definitely can be off-putting to some people. So you sort of have to know your audience, your significant other, and understand, what they can sort of handle in terms of criticism, because you don't want to just come off as critical. You want to let them understand that it's coming from a place of love and sincere caring, that you want to support them, and just keep them healthy and grow old together. Like, that is my goal, is to just make it so that the two of us, my husband and I, can do whatever we want in retirement and have all of the energy that we have now in our retirement to really enjoy those years. It's something that, my parents never got to achieve because of the health problems that they had. By the time that my parents were able to retire, my dad was pretty much immobile and couldn't do much of anything. So it was very disappointing to him, and then also very disappointing to my mom. And so that's something I just don't ever want to happen. And I feel like if we can approach that early and say, think of the long-term implications of how we're treating our bodies now, that's motivating,
Yeah, absolutely. I really like that message. Linda, you've shared a bunch of gems today, and I think, I'm going to have to go back right after this and listen to our first episode, because I always learned so much from you. Where can folks find you? What are you up to, and how can they get in contact with you if they want to work with you?
You can always find me on Instagram, and feel free to send me any direct messages there. I'm at the Carnitarian on Instagram. And in my bio, there is a link to my coaching calendar. So if you're interested in coaching, you can find me there as well. People can email me at thecarnitarianlife@gmail.com if they want to just directly message me there. And what I'm working on lately is just sort of more of the same, more carnivore. I just recently got a smoker. So I'm super excited to learn how to become an expert pitmaster. That is my next goal. So hopefully you'll be seeing lots of smoked meats on my feed in the upcoming weeks.
That's great. I'll, of course, have links to all that in the show notes, and I'll be drooling at every pic you post as usual.
Thank you.
Thanks, Linda.
If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the Carnivore Cast on Patreon. By becoming a patron, you'll help us reach more people and continue to create content on carnivore. There are also exclusive perks available, such as private Q&As, consultations with me, and more. Become a supporter at patreon.com/carnivorecast. Check the episode description for the link. Thank you, and I'll see you there. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Carnivore Cast. If you enjoyed this episode, please review on iTunes. It really helps us out. And share it with a friend. What questions would you like answered, or who would you like to hear from in the carnivore research community? You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Carnivore Cast, or go to carnivorecast.com. You can also email me at info@carnivorecast.com. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep it carnivore.